Our MC was just a single step away from becoming the absolute god of the entire universe, surrounded at the altar by 8 supreme empresses that he personally trained, protected, and loved. But at the exact moment of his glorious ascension, they totally showed their true colors. Poisoned and literally backstabbed by the women he trusted the most, our invincible warrior was brought to his knees. Humiliated, branded as a monster, and doomed to have his soul completely wiped out. That is, until the celestial entity itself got totally sick of this cowardice and activated a forbidden reversal technique. Time rewound 50 years straight back to the days when our hero was just a weak, ignored, and completely underestimated disciple. But now, fully armed with his future memories and a brand new divine system waking up in his mind, those future traitors think they can still play him like a fiddle, completely clueless about the absolute beast they just created. He isn't just going to take back the throne they stole from him. He is about to turn the lives of every single one of those ungrateful girls into an absolute living nightmare. Buckle up, because the ruthless revenge tour of the 9 lives Celestial Venerable starts right now. The story takes place in the highest of the 9 heavens in a grand celestial palace. An elder then announces that the 9-lived Celestial Venerable will achieve the path of a saint. He tells the crowd that witnessing this feat is the fortune of 3 lifetimes for them. With that, he welcomes the Venerable and announces that the tribulation is about to begin. Then our protagonist, Lu Yi, appears with a group of 8 stunning women. The beautiful young women walk with him to the center of the Ascension Arena. A guy in the audience comments that the Celestial Venerable seems quite pretentious. Another young man remarks that the hero is lucky with women, as all the empresses are top-notch. But an old man scolds them, telling them to take it seriously as this scene is one of a kind. In the past, Lu Yi fought against the monster race and vanquished demons all by himself. Because of his great deeds, he is considered a simply invincible existence. Suddenly, a large vortex of energy begins to form in the heavens. The protagonist stands still beneath the whirlwind, facing the challenge to come. With a confident smile, the young man declares that today he will ascend. Then the young man challenges anyone who dares to try and stop him from completing his goal. At that moment, the hero takes a powerful leap and flies towards the sky. The crowd gets excited, and one of them shouts that the great event has finally begun. A celestial entity emerges from the vortex and looks down on him. This divine being is accompanied by a large, intimidating-looking blue dragon. One of the empresses is startled because this is the #1 eternal tribulation. But the people are not shaken and believe that the 9-lived Venerable is invincible. Lu Yi doesn't seem intimidated and asks if the divine being really wants a battle. The entity in the sky just nods and says that he is doing very well. With that, the celestial being begins to gather a massive amount of energy. He then fires a golden energy attack in our hero's direction. The powerful blow hits the ground, causing a gigantic explosion of light. Meanwhile, the 8 empresses prepare to act, revealing their names. One of them says that they have waited for this moment for far too long. Suddenly, the divine being uses a time technique and creates several clones. An elder explains that if Lu Yi falls in one timeline, it will cause a fatal blow. One of the empresses gives a wicked smile as it seems their plan is working. However, Lu Yi also smiles and says he was already expecting this move from the enemy. He then confidently declares that in all timelines, he is an invincible existence. But the celestial being calls him arrogant as we see the hero fighting in another dimension. The entity reveals that it has already targeted and taken down all of his versions one by one. With this, the protagonist is shocked as he doesn't understand how this could be possible. His adversary explains that despite his strength, Lu Yi has been afflicted by a goo poison. The young man becomes furious and wonders who could be plotting against him behind his back. Suddenly, the hero has an epiphany and seems to understand what is happening. He then looks down towards his companions and wonders if it could be them. At that moment, all 8 empresses reveal their malicious smiles, confirming the betrayal. It's explained that this poison can only be planted through a close and intimate bond. The divine entity laments the fate of the young man, who was betrayed by the women he loved. But one of them shouts that he was a tyrant, and another accuses him of abandoning someone. The young women prepare to attack, saying they will send him on his final journey. The hero becomes enraged as they call him a demon and prepare to put an end to him. One of the traitors says that with his demise, they will finally be free. Lu Yi can't believe their ingratitude, as he was the one who made them empresses. The celestial being warns him not to get distracted and prepares another powerful attack. Seizing the opportunity, the entity fires a large beam of energy at the protagonist. The watching crowd is stunned by the Empress's blatant betrayal. Fallen and injured, the hero seems to accept that this is his end. But he says that if he's going down, then everyone will go with him to the great beyond. One of the girls panics and yells for everyone to flee the scene immediately. Another young woman realizes it's already too late to escape the hero's fury. The divine entity does not seem satisfied with the outcome of the battle. He says the victory was not honorable, and that he will therefore give Lu Yi a new chance. The bodies of the protagonist and the empresses are enveloped in a bluish light. The being tells them to accompany him for another round, and that he hopes not to be disappointed. A time reversal technique takes their souls 50 years into the past. Lu Yi looks at himself in the mirror and is shocked to realize he has truly returned to the past. At that moment, one of his future traitors, Chuling, appears, feeling very dizzy. She gets scared when she sees the hero and wonders if everything that happened was just a dream. Observing her reaction, the young man smiles, realizing she has also returned. He then mentally thanks the entity for giving him a second chance to choose. Suddenly, the protagonist pulls down his own pants, leaving the young woman completely confused. With that, he puts his foot in a basin of water and orders her to come wash it immediately. Chuling becomes furious, and Lu Yi thinks about how he could finish her right now for her betrayal. But he decides that her passing is not the most severe punishment for her at this moment. The young man knows she is full of anger, and taking her down now wouldn't make her feel pain. Therefore, he will let her live so she can experience a miserable end without his help. He then faces her and says that none of it was a dream, and that they have all returned. The young woman is in shock as she understands the gravity of the situation she is now in. The hero explains that the divine being's technique brought them all back in time. The young woman starts to cry as she realizes her plans might not work out this time. Lu Yi then taunts her, saying she wanted freedom and that now she is free. He shows the girl a life contract tablet that bound her to him. With a snap of his fingers, the protagonist burns the contract and releases her from his service. The young woman then questions why he destroyed himself in the first life when he had 9. But the young man says it's none of her business and tells her to leave the place. Chuling accepts and vows that since he has been reborn, she will ensure he has a horrible end. As she leaves, she says that without him around, her life would have been much better. The young woman then heads towards her home to reunite with her beloved family. Arriving there, she proudly announces that Linger is back for everyone. From a distance, the protagonist watches everything with a sly smile on his face. He thinks about the scoundrel father, the shameless mother, and the useless brother she has. The young man says that upon returning, she will discover what a true den of demons is like. With that, he declares that without the 8 women, he will reach a higher realm. Suddenly, the door is kicked open by a powerful kick coming his way. He recognizes the traitor Yu Hongling, who is now just a simple fairy. The young woman kicks the door open and shouts the protagonist's name. With a furious look, she vows she will put an end to him right now. Yu Hongling then rushes at him with a high kick, but he easily defends against it. The young man holds her leg and taunts her, asking if she still dares to attack him. He pulls her close to him, and the frightened young woman asks what he is doing. Lu Yi then orders her to fix the door she broke, or he will put an end to her. The girl refuses and says, crying that because of him, she can't be with Feng Wuxi. With that, the hero grabs her and says she needs to stay alive to be able to find him. The young woman agrees to fix the door, as she knows that even in the past, she is no match for him. After hearing her answer, the young man throws her to the ground without any mercy. He then warns her that if the door isn't fixed when he returns, she's done for. Yu Hongling stands up and questions him, as they were companions in their past life. But the protagonist says that was in the past, and that now they owe each other nothing. With that said, the young man turns and walks away through a beautiful flower garden. Soon, he arrives at a place where another woman named Bakulin awaits him. The young man bows and greets her respectfully, calling her master. She then asks him why he now possesses only a single life. The young man explains that he merged his 9 lives into one to achieve a breakthrough. The master says she has found a method to contain the power of chaos and forget the past. She warns him not to have treacherous intentions, or she will cleanse the sect herself. But Lu Yi wonders if she would have achieved this without him absorbing the poison himself. Now on a mountain, the young man realizes he has returned to the 5th level of Chuai refinement. He then decides to call for his old partner to see if he is still there. A system screen then appears and asks what the host needs at the moment. The hero comments to the system that it was quite cruel for becoming the heavenly Tao. The digital partner explains that as his host, it had to arrange the strongest tribulation. The young man thanks it sarcastically and says that now he will start cultivating for real. With that, the system activates the cultivation of the 9 lived immortal heavenly scripture. Meanwhile, an exhausted Chuling arrives at the main gate of the Chu Sword Manor. With a tired smile, the young woman announces to her parents that she is finally back. A guard calls her a beggar and says the Chu Sword Manor is no place for her. But the young woman denies being a beggar and states with conviction that her name is Chuling. The guard calls her insolent and threatens her for daring to impersonate the eldest young miss. She then approaches and asks the guard to look closely at her face and remember her. Suddenly, a man appears and shouts that she isn't even from the Chu family bloodline. He calls her a fool for coming back, but she argues that she was treated like a daughter. The first guard finally recognizes her and panics, shouting that it's all over. At that moment, her adoptive parents appear and are very happy to see her after so long. The young woman runs towards her father while her brother watches everything from the rooftop. Her mother hugs her, and the young woman apologizes, saying she was taken and brought to the sect. Just then, her brother Chu Shifei loses his balance and falls from the roof where he was. He cries with relief and celebrates that the scapegoat has returned and that he is now safe. Meanwhile, Lu Yi continues his intense cultivation, surrounded by a great golden energy. With his experience from his past life, it only takes him 15 days to advance from the 5th to the 9th level. Suddenly, the young man coughs up blood and realizes that half of his true QI is paralyzed. The system detects a poison, and he understands that the traitor has put in an extra safeguard. He knows they don't want him to recover, but he still has a trump card and asks for help. The system explains what to do, but the young man can't do it with only half of his QI. At this, the hero remembers a pill that can help him break through to the next realm. He remembers that in his past life, he gave this extremely rare pill to Yu Hongling, but with a determined look, he declares that in this life, that won't happen again. Suddenly, the protagonist senses something and looks up in the direction of a large gate. News spreads that Yu Hongling has broken a sect record and advanced a level. Louis comments that she's fast, as he was only 2 days quicker even with the system. He then jumps from the cliff to descend the mountain, and the system asks where he is going. The young man says he is going to an ancient tomb to get back the pill that belongs to him. He knows the tome will only be discovered in a month, and we see that Yu Hongling is also going. Inside the tome, the most precious items are a scripture fragment and the origin pill. The young woman is already there and says that in this life, she is 1 step ahead of her former master. Her determined look shows that she won't let him surpass her this time. Upon opening the book, Yu Hongling is surprised by a taunting message left for her. Furious, the young woman throws the book on the ground and curses the protagonist's name with all her might. Suddenly, beams of golden energy emerge and trap the girl in an unexpected snare. Completely trapped, she screams desperately for the hero to release her from that technique. 3 days later, we see the protagonist calmly returning to the sect with the pill. At that moment, Yu Hongling appears and breaks his room door once again. But as she tries to attack him, the young woman is repelled by a protective energy barrier. The force of the barrier throws her back, making her fall to the ground with great impact. He then taunts her, asking if her mother didn't teach her to knock on the door. The young woman glares at him with hatred and vows that even if she perishes, she will never surrender to him. Realizing the situation, she changes tactics and politely asks him to open the door. But the protagonist simply ignores her and tells the girl to get out of there immediately. Annoyed, she tries to force her way in and asks if he took the pill from the tome. Once again, the protective barrier of the young man's room repels her violently. The young woman tries to control herself and takes a deep breath to not lose her cool over the situation. She asks again, and the young man denies taking the pill and tells her to leave once more. The young woman accuses him of not having the courage to admit it and prepares to fight to the end. Just then, their master appears from the sky and tells Hongling to calm down immediately. The girl then kneels and starts to cry, saying the protagonist assaulted her. The master then questions the young man as to why he would have hit his junior sister. The hero replies that she entered without knocking and that the young woman simply has no manners. The master says that even so, he should respect her and asks what she wanted. The girl points at him and says she wanted to trade for the pill that he doesn't need. Her master agrees and asks him to give the pill to her, as he doesn't need it. But the protagonist politely refuses and says that he also needs that item. His former companion calls him a liar and doubts his current abilities. The young man just sighs and materializes the shiny pill in his hand to show them. The master smiles, thinking the young man will be a good boy and hand over the pill. However, he gives a sly smile and seems to have other plans for the valuable item. Without a second thought, the hero simply swallows the pill in front of everyone. The master is furious with Luya's attitude and glares at him with disapproval. Yu Hongling leaves in a rage while the master vows to get her revenge on him. The master sighs and says she understood his anger, but there was no need for all that. Meanwhile, at the Chu Sword Manor, Chu Ling's adoptive mother gives her some porridge. The young woman thanks her and says her mother is the best person in the world and that she will never leave them again. The mother then asks if she thinks they are better than her biological parents. Chu Ling says they disappeared and can't compare to the love she received from her adoptive parents. With that, the mother changes the subject and asks the young woman to rest a bit. But as soon as the young woman turns around, her mother gives a wicked smile and celebrates that the family is saved. Suddenly, Chu Ling feels an uncontrollable sleepiness and asks her mother what is happening. The mother, with a sinister look, just tells her daughter to sleep since she is sleepy. The drowsiness hits her hard, and the young woman can no longer stay awake. She tries to use her scripture to understand what's happening, but it's already too late. The girl then realizes in shock that she has been poisoned by someone. She thinks about the porridge but can't believe her mother would poison her on purpose. A voice from outside asks if she is already asleep, startling her. With no strength to react, the young woman is covered and prepared to be taken somewhere. Her mother then tells the shadows at the door that she is already poisoned and they can begin. Her brother appears and praises their mother for her cleverness in deceiving the young woman. The mother orders them to take her to the old ancestor, while Chu Ling cries in despair. With that, a group of people carries the unconscious girl through the dark forest. Far away, a servant informs his master that the guard Chu Sai was eliminated without a trace. The adoptive father is relieved as a mere servant almost ruined his entire grand plan. He then scolds his son, saying that if she hadn't returned, the sacrifice would have been him. The son apologizes to his father and promises to start cultivating diligently. Chu Ling hears everything and realizes she was raised just to be a sacrifice for the sword. The brother even suggests that since she is going to meet her end, he could take advantage of the situation first. The father scolds him and reveals that she is the daughter of 2 departed slaves, not his sister. With tears in her eyes, she understands that her biological parents were done in by them. But the mother suggests to her husband that he let their son have a moment with the girl. The father denies the request and says that delaying the forging of the ancestral sword will bring suffering to all. The young woman thinks about how she treated her mother and finally understands why Lu Yi didn't want her at home. She then remembers a day when she begged the young master to visit her parents. At the time, the hero questioned her hurry, as they weren't even her real parents. The young woman argued that they treated her better than any biological parents ever would. With a smile, the young man promised to take her personally when the sword was ready. But she accused him of lying and of just deceiving her once again with promises. Another memory shows the girl returning home to find everything in flames. In her past life, she blamed the protagonist for the destruction of her home and family. Now she wonders if the sword he mentioned was her family's demonic sword. Meanwhile, Louis watches everything through his system, which informs him of the girl's coma. He finds it ridiculous that someone so strong was drugged and that she just denies the truth. At this, the system asks if the master wishes to go save her from that dangerous situation. But the hero says he's happy with this and that besides, she doesn't need his help. The Chu family then arrives at the sword forging grounds to begin the ritual. They all bow before the family's ancestor, an old man named Chu Kangxing. The elder orders him to hand over the girl so he can begin the process. He then invites the father and son to observe the sword's completion ceremony. The ancestor stands before a large forge fire with a black sword floating in it. He says the demon sword took 30 years of his sweat and tears to make. The adoptive father congratulates him as with the sword, he will reach a new realm of power. With a wave of his hand, the old man announces that the final ritual will finally begin. Countless flaming swords are summoned from within the great whirlwind of fire. The demon sword in the center begins to glow with a sinister and very powerful energy. The ancestor then shouts with authority the order to sacrifice the young woman to the sword. The father holds her and says it wasn't a waste to raise her for this purpose. Without hesitation, he throws her directly into the intense fire of the great forge. Her brother just watches and comments to himself that all of this is such a waste. Suddenly, a smile emerges from the middle of the flames, surprising everyone present. Chuling emerges unharmed from the fire as the demon sword shatters into several pieces. A new sword with a red and black blade emerges from the flames of the forge. The adoptive father is completely shocked and wonders what is happening. Suddenly, an invisible force hits him and throws him back violently. The young woman now holds a new sword enveloped in a powerful purple energy aura. She then floats out of the fire, facing the ancestor with a cold gaze. Her brother yells to his father in a panic, warning him that she didn't perish in the ritual. The ancestor can't believe what he's seeing and wonders how this could be possible. Without hesitation, the girl advances towards the old man with her new sword in hand. The tip of the blade glows intensely as she prepares a powerful attack. The elder tries to defend himself from the swift and precise blow, but it's already too late. The attack hits him head-on and throws him back with overwhelming force. The old man screams desperately that this is not the correct way to use a demon sword. The girl rises into the air, enveloped by a purple aura and particles of darkness. She then declares with conviction that a true demon sword like hers should exist only to vanquish true demons like all of them there. The adoptive father falls to his knees and recognizes her, stammering her name in despair. She glares at him and asks why they did this after she treated them like family. But the young woman glares at him with fury and says he better not dare call her by her nickname anymore. With a single swift and powerful strike, she ends her adoptive father's life. Next, she turns to her brother, who is completely terrified by the scene. The young man kneels and begs for his life, saying he can be treated like a dog. But she says he is worse than a dog and eliminates him without a shred of mercy. Suddenly, the adoptive mother appears and is shocked to see the young woman standing there. She asks why Chuling is there and where the other family members are. The young woman just stares at her coldly and asks rhetorically who she is referring to. The mother then asks fearfully about the whereabouts of her father and brother. With a look of pure hatred, the girl declares that she has no family anymore. Then she advances and sends her mother to join the others in the next world without hesitation. Walking away, she says that everyone in the Chu family deserves the same fate. Finally, the young woman drives her sword into the ground with force and determination. From a distance, Lu Yi watches everything and comments that she didn't leave anyone alive at the scene. Satisfied with what he saw, he then asks the system to turn off the broadcast. The system obeys but warns him that a powerful cultivator is on his way to take her down. With a wicked smile, the hero says she deserves what's coming to her. Meanwhile, the girl cries on the ground injured and admits she was wrong about everything. Suddenly, footsteps are heard, and a mysterious man slowly approaches her. This is Legion Shangren, a guy with a very suspicious and dangerous appearance. With a malicious smile, he celebrates that the demon sword has truly been forged. He then attacks her, saying he will free her from the pain the demonic sword brings. The blow hits the young woman squarely, who is already badly injured from the previous battle. But the man finds it strange, as she seems not to have reacted to the attack at all. Calling her a fool, he prepares to deliver the final blow and finish her off. With that, he shouts that the sword is his now, and goes for the final attack. However, the girl manages to block the blow with her newly acquired sword. The man's sword breaks on impact and embeds itself in the ground beside him. He is surprised and thinks she must have another secret besides the demon sword. Taking advantage of the distraction, Chuling gets up and starts running away from there. He chases after her, shouting for her to stop as the young woman flees for her life. Back at the sect, Yu Hongling knocks on the hero's door and tells him to come out. She then threatens to force her way, and if he doesn't open the door for her immediately. The young woman prepares to kick the door again, but gives up at the last second. She then questions why he only formed one celestial dan even with treasures. The young woman accuses the protagonist of sabotaging her cultivation on purpose. The system warns him about the insults, but Lu Ye just decides to seal his ears and cultivate. At that moment, their master appears and tells Hong Ling to stop the shouting. The girl explains that he always helped her, so she tried to do the same on her own. The master scolds her and says that Lu Ye refined the treasures with great effort. Hong Ling is shocked to realize all the work he used to do for her in the past. The master then says that of everyone there, Lu Ye was the one who cared about her the most. With that, she orders the girl to go immediately and apologize to her senior brother. But Hong Ling refuses and says he separated her from her beloved, and for that she will never forgive him. With that, the master sends her to the back mountain to reflect in seclusion. The young woman agrees to leave and departs for her punishment without looking back. Meanwhile, Chuling continues her desperate escape, climbing a steep mountain. Exhausted and injured, she finally manages to reach the gates of the Great Tao sect. A female disciple from the place appears and asks in a challenging tone who dares to approach. The young woman falls to the ground and manages to say her name, and that she is looking for Lu Ye. The disciple is surprised, and at that moment, the young woman's pursuer finally appears. The man says he chased a villainess there and apologizes for the intrusion. He then tries to take the girl away so as not to offend the sect's prestige, but the disciple stops him and says she will ask about the young woman before handing her over. She then orders a guard to watch the man and not let him take the girl. The young woman goes to Beilan Peak and calls for junior brother Lu Ye to ask a question. She repeats the name of the girl who fell at the entrance to see if he knows her. However, the protagonist coldly replies that he has no idea who she is. He then tells her to leave and reinforces that he doesn't know any Chuling. The system asks if the master is really going to let her meet her end like that. But the young man says she won't meet her end and that he hasn't forgotten how she treated him. The disciple then returns and informs the man that no one in the sect knows the girl. With that, she says he can finally take this supposed villainess away from there. The man smiles and approaches to take the young woman, soiling the noble sect. Suddenly, his hand is frozen by blue energy and he recoils in pain. Frightened, the man shouts and asks who is there to interfere with his plans. At that moment, Master Beikulin descends from the heavens with an imposing blue aura. The disciples bow and greet her respectfully as Marshal Aunt Bei. She then faces the man and says with authority that he cannot take her. The man accuses her of going back on her word and says that's not what a righteous sect does. The disciple calls him insolent and asks if he wants to test the sect's blades. But he is not intimidated and says that his own sword is not blind either. He then prepares for combat, wielding his blade with a look of defiance. The disciple then advances to battle with her sword in hand and a lot of determination. However, Master Beikulin is faster and attacks the man with her ice powers. With a single powerful blow, she completely freezes the enemy in an instant. She then orders him to take care of the body and says she will take the woman back to the sect. From afar, another disciple flies towards them and begs her senior sister to save Chuling. Inside the sect, we see the young trader lying in a bed with very serious injuries. The other young woman is shocked and tries to use her energy to heal the girl's wounds. The master sighs and wonders what obsession kept her alive, as she was nearly gone. But the disciple says she can save her and thanks the master for her hard work. Sometime later, Chuling finally wakes up and desperately calls for the young master. She then sees the two women and eagerly asks where the protagonist is. The other disciple is confused, wondering why the little girl calls Chulin's sister. The master explains that Lu Ye is still in seclusion and it's not time for him to come out. The young woman asks if he was the one who sent someone to save her and says she needs to find him. Beikulin asks her to calm down and says that first, she needs to rest and recover. But the young woman insists she needs to apologize because she misunderstood everything about him. The other disciple gets excited as it seems she heard some very interesting gossip. The master, however, seems not to have liked her disciple's curiosity at all. With that, the young woman asks her senior sister to leave as she wants to discuss something with Linger. The disciple then says goodbye with a smile and a wave as she leaves the room. Alone, the master tells Chuling not to call her sister anymore, but Senior Bei. She then begins to explain that to save her, Lu Ye had to do something inevitable. The girl is shocked to understand what the master meant by the inevitable thing. Beikulin is a bit embarrassed by the conversation and looks away. Outside, the other disciple is blocked by a blue energy barrier. She is confused and wonders why she suddenly can't hear anything anymore. The young woman then realizes angrily that they are deliberately protecting themselves from her. Meanwhile, Lu Ye finally finishes his long seclusion and stretches. The system informs him that Chuling has been waiting for him outside for a long time. But the young man refuses to see her, as he hasn't forgotten what she did in his past life. He thinks that women only delay his cultivation, and that in this life, nothing is more important. Outside, Chuling believes that if she perseveres, one day he will forgive her for everything. Meanwhile, on Crimson Cloud Peak, one of the 9 main peaks of the Tao sect, there we see the beautiful Yu Hongling practicing her sword skills on a mountain. She trains with great agility and grace, leaping among the rocks of the place. Suddenly, a mysterious young man watches her hidden behind a large rock. This is Lingyu Wushuang, who is captivated by the young woman's beauty and strength. But he is hit by a piece of rock that flies in his direction by accident. The girl notices his presence and asks with a serious look who is there. The young man comes out of his hiding place and introduces himself as a new disciple of the peak. She recognizes the name and remembers that he became the holy son in the hero's place. The new disciple praises her technique and asks if he can ask for some tips. With a smile, the young woman calls him a brat and says he can't beat her. He then challenges her to a fight so they can find out who is stronger. But she proposes that he challenge Lu Ye, and if he wins, he can fight her. The young man doesn't understand as he has no resentment towards this Lu Ye. The young woman explains that he is the reason the master punished her and confined her there. Curious, he asks his junior sister to tell him exactly what happened between them. So she begins to tell the whole story from the day she broke his door. An hour later, Lingyu is furious and says that person doesn't deserve to be her brother. He then says he will avenge her anger and sets off to defeat the protagonist. But the young man is determined and says that if he doesn't teach him a lesson, he will be unworthy. At that moment, the protagonist senses someone approaching his room. The new disciple then shouts from outside, introducing himself as Lingyu Wushuang. The hero is confused, wondering why that boy would be there now. He then remembers that their first meeting was supposed to be at a future tournament. The young man asks if he is Lu Yi, and the protagonist confirms and asks what he wants. Lingyu then asks if the hero has heard of his story and his deeds. He says he knows the protagonist condensed a celestial pill in 2 months. The hero corrects him, saying it was 2 months and 11 days, as the first was for registration. With a fake smile, the protagonist praises his opponent's talent, but the young man gets annoyed and says he is there to challenge him and wipe that smile off his face. Lu Yi then accepts the challenge, saying he was bored anyway. He says he will give the young man some pointers, who then attacks without holding back. The challenger is shocked as the hero defends against his sword with just 2 fingers. With a red energy strike, the protagonist easily subdues the other young man. Lingyu realizes the situation is not good as his sword is stopped in mid-air. The hero gives a slight smile and prepares for his next move. With incredible speed, he appears behind his opponent and hits him with a kick. The young disciple is thrown far away with no chance to react to the surprise attack. He then falls face down on the ground, completely defeated by the protagonist's blow. Lu Yi looks at him with disdain and asks if that was enough for him. But the young man gets up and, with his sword in hand, shouts that he wants to fight again. With that, he uses his powerful special technique, the Crimson Cloud Sword Art. Lingyu creates a giant energy sword and doubts the hero can dodge it. However, the protagonist dodges the blow with impressive ease. The other disciple is completely shocked, as he didn't expect that. Lu Yi's eye glows with a red energy as he prepares his counter-attack. He then warns his opponent to pay attention, as he will only show this once. Lingyu is impressed by the hero's speed and can't keep up with him. With a trail of red energy, the protagonist advances to end the fight. The young man is hit squarely, and his attack is completely neutralized by the blow. The hero then turns and asks if the young disciple still wants to continue. He admits he can't match his skill, but that his comprehension is strong. Lu Yi is curious and asks what his senior brother means by that. Lingyu gets up and says he has already understood the second form of the sword art. He then unleashes an immense power, creating several walls of flame around him. The protagonist acknowledges that his opponent's perception is indeed very good. With that, the challenger launches a series of high-speed sword attacks. But he gets a look of astonishment as something completely unexpected happens. With a calm smile, the protagonist asks if they can end the fight now. Lingyu then admits his defeat and says the hero's future achievements will surpass his own. The young man then says he'll tell everyone they fought for 10 rounds and that he barely won. With that, the young disciple says goodbye and leaves while the hero watches him. Suddenly, Chuling appears, running and happy that Lu Yi has come out of seclusion. But the door to the protagonist's room slams shut in her face with great force. The young woman then kneels and asks why her senior brother closed the door again. Lingyu tells her to have some self-respect, as there are other men in the world who would accept her. He then laments that despite being handsome and dashing, the young woman completely ignores him. Meanwhile, Yu Honglin continues her intense training in a verdant field. At the end of the fight, she admits to Lingyu that she lost their combat. The young woman then remembers that she warned him he wouldn't be able to win that challenge. He replies that the young man is decent and not as bad as she described before. But she argues that he treats men well, but with women, it's a different story. Lingyu then comments that he saw a maiden kneeling at his door but was ignored. The young woman becomes curious and asks about the appearance and name of this mysterious maiden. He describes her, and Honglin realizes with a shock that Chuling has actually returned to the sect. The young woman then tries to convince herself that she can't be jealous of the protagonist. Seeing her reaction, Lingyu wonders if she is also one of Lu Yi's women. He reminds her of her promise to fight, but she says he didn't win the challenge. With that, the young woman says it's time to make him give up once and for all. With red eyes, she warns that she won't be as merciful as the hero was. A large explosion occurs in the distance as the young man pleads for mercy. Half an hour later, we see the young disciple completely bruised and defeated. The girl tells him to leave and warns him not to disturb her cultivation again. He cries and wonders if everyone from White Orchid Peak are merciless monsters. Alone, the young woman wonders with intrigue why Chuling decided to return to the sect. So she decides she needs to see with her own eyes and doesn't care about the punishment. Back at the peak, we see that the other young woman is still kneeling at the hero's door. With tears in her eyes, she admits she was wrong and asks for her senior brother's forgiveness. Suddenly, the door opens and she falls into the protagonist's room. She calls for him, but the room is empty, and he is nowhere to be found. At that moment, Yu Hongling arrives and informs her that Luyi has already left. The young woman asks why she is still kneeling if he's not even there anymore. With tears in her eyes, she says she will continue to stay there until the young master returns. Hongling tries to lift her up and says that female cultivators also have their dignity. But the young woman refuses and confesses that she poisoned the master in their past life. From afar, the master observes and says that it's all in the past, and she doesn't need to blame herself. The girl explains that the poison has no cure and stays in the body forever. Hongling is shocked to learn that the poison is still trapped in Luyi's body. The master then deduces that the pill he took was to combat the poison. Chuling cries as she realizes he didn't take the pill on purpose, but out of necessity. Hongling turns and apologizes to her senior brother, who is no longer there. The master wonders if everyone misunderstood the young man and where he could be. Meanwhile, on the back mountain of the sect, the protagonist is in a gazebo. The system warns him that everyone is waiting for him, but the hero ignores it. He then says that this is a peaceful place and that he will cultivate there. The young man declares that women are just obstacles on his path to the Tao. The system asks how long the master plans to stay there in seclusion. He says he will stay until he reaches the 13th level before the September tournament. 3 months later, an order is given for all disciples to gather. The protagonist then departs on his flying sword to the meeting place. On the way, he orders everyone to stop and wait for his orders. In the air, he sees his 3 former companions and traitors flying in the same direction. Chuling's eyes bruised, and she wonders what is happening. She spots him in the sky and calls him by the title of young master with a hopeful look. The other 2 also approach and apologize to the hero at the same time. The master tries to get his attention but seems to be out of breath to speak. 2 disciples observe the scene and wonder how to live with so much competition. But Luyi doesn't seem to care and simply shouts for them all to disappear. The disciples watching the scene are shocked and call him a true legend. Yu Hongling agrees to leave and departs with the other 2 without complaining. The master sighs tiredly while the protagonist observes the scene with indifference. Chuling still tries to speak with the young master but is ignored once again. The other disciples bow before the hero and call him a model to be followed. Suddenly, an elder tells everyone to get to their positions and announces the arrival of the vice master. The sect's vice master appears with an imposing air and begins to give a speech. The protagonist complains about the old man's bureaucratic tone, which reminds him of his past life. The elder explains that the competition will be single elimination and not to accept defeat. With that, he officially declares the 90th All-Sex Open Tournament open. The first to fight is Yu Hongling, who enters the arena with confident and graceful steps. She looks in Luyi's direction but realizes he isn't even looking at her. The young woman then defeats her opponent with a single, powerful spinning kick in the air. The vice master then announces her victory in the first round of the grand tournament. Next, the one to fight is Chuling, who says goodbye to the young master before she goes. With tears in her eyes, the young woman turns and prepares for her first battle. The protagonist watches her and thinks that such devotion is a waste of beauty. The girl then enters the arena and faces her opponent with a determined look. The other disciple scolds her for humiliating herself in front of a man like that. But Chuling thanks her for the concern and says her master is more important than the Tao. The opponent gets angry with the response and attacks to teach her a lesson. She shouts for the young woman to wake up as she delivers a series of rapid blows. From a distance, a disciple wonders how Luyi managed to bewitch the girl like that. The opponent tells her junior sister not to blame her for being a little rougher. Chuling dodges all the attacks with impressive calm and precision. She then counterattacks with a purple energy strike that catches her opponent by surprise. The disciple ironically thanks her for the concern and is defeated by the attack. With that, Chuling wins the battle and tells her opponent that she let her win. She then turns to the hero with a smile and says she won the first round. The protagonist just stares at her, surrounded by disciples furious with his attitude. One of them then calls him a scoundrel and complains that he doesn't know how to appreciate a lady. Suddenly, the next match is announced, and to everyone's surprise, it will be Luyi against Guchung. The protagonist thinks he doesn't remember that name very well from his past lives. His opponent then attacks and vows to teach him a good lesson on behalf of everyone. But the hero looks at him with indifference and defends against the blow without any difficulty. With a powerful red energy counterattack, he throws his opponent into the air. The young man falls to the ground completely defeated, and Luyi says he let him win. The vice master comments that this batch of disciples has produced some good seeds. The master agrees and says that those from White Orchid Peak are the most over the top. She thinks they are excellent, but their emotions are a bit too rich. The old man fears that if the 2 girls meet him, they might not have the heart to compete. He then feels a strong presence and realizes his junior sister Bai is there. The elder grumbles that even his sister is detestable and seems annoyed. With a serious look, he fears that if this continues, his sect will become something else. In the second round, all 3 from the peak easily advance to the next stage. In the third round, the 2 girls also advance without difficulty in their fights. Then Luyi's next fight is announced against an opponent from Dao asking Peak. The man uses a spiritual turtle shield that has very strong defensive power. The protagonist then leaps into the air and prepares a powerful attack to break the defense. With a single punch, he shatters the purple energy shield into several pieces. The opponent becomes desperate as the hero's fist rapidly approaches. After the victory, he stands in the arena while his adversary lies on the ground. Finally, his next opponent is revealed, and to his surprise, it is Yu Hongling. She knows she can't beat him but asks him not to hit her face in the fight. With a sly smile, he says she reminded him of something important. He then hits her with a blast of red energy right in her face. Furious, the young woman shouts that she told him not to hit her face at all. Enveloped in a golden energy aura, she asks him to instruct her in combat. The young woman then fires a powerful energy punch in the protagonist's direction. The hero prepares to receive the blow with a serious and very determined look. The golden energy punch advances with full force towards the protagonist. However, the young man manages to stop the blow with one hand and throws her away. The young woman falls to the ground and sits defeated while the hero looks down on her. One of the spectators wonders if the protagonist happens to dislike women. The young woman turns and vows that she is not done with him yet and that the fight is not over. Two disciples comment that he should protect himself and that he's a boy all alone out there. In the 5th round, Lingyu says he is still no match for him but is determined. The hero praises him for his courage and for always wanting to improve in cultivation. The young man then asks why he is so merciless with his junior sister. Lingyu says he doesn't need to know and invites him to start the combat at once. The young disciple then uses his mountain sword technique enveloped in flames, but the protagonist responds by releasing his own powerful sword intent. A red energy blade advances and cuts through the opponent's flame attack. Lingyu is shocked to see his attack completely neutralized by the hero. The young man then asks with a smile if they are still going to continue fighting. His sword falls to the ground and he stands up, defeated once again by the protagonist. With that, he turns and announces to everyone that he surrenders and gives up the combat. The hero accepts the surrender with a smile and a respectful hand gesture. The watching elders are impressed by the young man's talent. One of them says that Bai is not a specialist in the sword Dao, and that he should teach him. Another says that he can't even beat him, and that he himself should be the master. A third elder says he will speak with his master to teach Lu Ye personally. But Bai Qulin interrupts them and says the young man is a disciple of her peak. The elders then begin to offer resources and treasures to have the young man. But the master refuses to negotiate him and says there is no chance of that happening. The protagonist observes the scene and thinks that something like this shouldn't be happening. He wonders the master isn't afraid that he will betray them all again. Suddenly, a powerful voice says it will take Lu Ye, and the master is startled. The war sword venerable appears from the heavens with an imposing and strong presence. All the elders bow and greet him respectfully as martial uncle. All the other disciples bow before the supreme elder with great reverence. The protagonist smiles and thinks that even a supreme elder came to poach someone. Suddenly, another elder appears and says the young man is more suited to his sword Dao. And then another one appears from the heavens and says Lu Yi is a better fit for him. Master Bei calls them martial uncles and scolds them for trying to steal her disciple. One of the elders argues that she is a spell cultivator and cannot teach him, but she insists that is no reason for them to simply steal him from her. The war sword venerable then decides to ask the young man directly what he thinks. He flies to the protagonist and asks if he is willing to join another sect. The master and Hongling stare at him, anxious for the answer he will give everyone. Hongling warns him that if he leaves, they will have nothing to do with each other from then on. With a sly smile on his face, the young man seems to have already made his final decision. To everyone's astonishment, he says with conviction that of course, he's in. The elder celebrates and says he will introduce himself to the sect master and let him decide. With that, all the elders depart at high speed for the Grand Master's hall. Other disciples decide to go too, hoping to get a good deal for themselves. Hongling asks the master what they should do now with the situation. The master then declares with confidence that no one will steal him while she is there. She then flies towards the hall, saying she will also speak with the master. The woman shouts to everyone that the match isn't over yet and to continue the event. The next fight is between Chu Ling and Xiao Huarong, a confrontation between two beauties. The two face each other in the arena, and Chu Ling tells her senior sister to make her move. Meanwhile, in the Great Dao Hall, the elders plead for the talented disciple. Master Bai also arrives and asks the master to say no and that she will bow. Then the great master of the Dao sect, Lu Changfeng, appears and tells everyone to be quiet. All the elders obey and fall silent before the authority of their leader. The master then looks at Bai and seems to be thinking about what to do with the situation. With a cute smile, he compliments the young woman's beauty, whom he hadn't seen in a year. The other elders are shocked and embarrassed by their master's attitude. The master just sighs wordlessly at the completely unexpected scene. The master bows and greets him formally with respect and reverence. He then tells her to call him senior brother, as there is no need for formalities. But she replies that the sect's rules and etiquette cannot be abolished. The master agrees and asks for her opinion on the matter at hand. The young woman declares that she will not allow Lu Yi to leave, as it goes against the rules. One of the elders accuses her of being a spell cultivator and of deceiving the disciples. She then replies that she can teach both spells and swords with mastery. With that, she challenges the three martial uncles to a sword combat. One of the elders accepts the challenge and says he will seal his cultivation to fight. She then says she will never lose and invites them to fight in the sky if they want him. The elder accepts and says that for successor, he does not fear being labeled a bully. The master worries and asks his martial uncle not to hurt his junior sister. Outside, the master summons a large bluish ice energy sword. Chuling observes the scene from afar and is shocked by her master's power. Another disciple comments that the master's sun god's sword has made its move. The elder wonders how this is possible, as he has never seen that technique before. The master warns him to be careful, as she will not hold back in the combat. The old man then summons his own purple energy sword for the confrontation. With a war cry, he launches his solitary sword towards his niece. The two energy swords clash in the sky in a great explosion of light. But the master's sword proves stronger and shatters the elders into pieces. With that, she confidently announces that the martial uncle has lost the battle between them. She then turns to the next one and invites him to enlighten her with his wisdom. But the war sword venerable says she has proven herself capable of teaching him. The other elder agrees and says he feels the same way about her skills. The master then thanks the two martial uncles for acknowledging her power. The master approaches and asks if the sword art she used is not from the sect. She confirms that she obtained it by chance and that it does not belong to the Great Tao sect. With a smile, the master invites her to study together in the scripture pavilion. But the young woman refuses and says that to his surprise, she doesn't like sword arts. The winner of the tournament is Chu Ling, and the final match will be between her and Lu Ye. The young woman calls for her master with a smile on her face in great expectation. But she senses the murderous intent coming from the hero and is completely confused. She then asks if the young master really wants to end her life. The audience gets excited and shouts for her to destroy that scoundrel without mercy. Suddenly, the girl kneels in front of him and tells the master to do as he pleases. The protagonist is left completely confused and wonders what has gotten into her. The audience is also shocked, and one of them says she is 1,000 times more devout than he is. The hero says they no longer have any relationship and that he will not take her down. But the young woman insists and says he can take her down, but she will never leave him. With that, he attacks her with the side of his sword so that she can't get up. The young man calls her crazy and can't understand what's going through her mind. The vice master then announces the end of the match and declares Lu Yi the grand winner. He hands the hero a medallion and sends him to the treasure pavilion to get his reward. The protagonist thanks the vice master and takes the golden medallion in his hands. Suddenly, he feels a cold energy coming from somewhere and becomes alert. Looking to the side, he sees the master and Chuling together and wonders what it could be. The master is shocked to realize she has become so strong all of a sudden. The other disciple praises her and says she seems to hide many things from her. She then questions her and asks the master to confess everything she knows now. But Master Bai becomes embarrassed and stammers, not knowing what to say to the disciple. The young woman notices the flirtation and wonders what her master has been doing behind her back. The master is startled by the question and wonders if she could have found out. Suddenly, she feels the chaos poison manifesting early in her body. The disciple worries and asks what exactly is wrong with her now. But the master just says it's nothing and tries to hide her pain and discomfort. With that, she says she has something to do and flies away at high speed. The protagonist observes and thinks that the poison has manifested and that she will use her strength. He then climbs the stairs of the great treasure pavilion to get his prize. A guard recognizes him as the champion and invites him to enter the place. An elder informs him that he can choose 3 treasures below the 7th floor. The protagonist then chooses a wood spirit pearl and a ridge key. The old man says the first 2 items are good but questions the choice of the cauldron. With a mysterious smile, the hero says he has his own uses for the item. Outside, he begins to advertise the cauldron to the other disciples. The young man approaches a senior brother and offers the item for a black fruit. But the man gets angry and sends him away without even considering the proposal. The protagonist worries, wondering if he won't be able to sell the cauldron. Suddenly, he has a brilliant idea to get rid of the unwanted item. He then starts to announce the benefits of the cauldron for strengthening the body. With a sly look, he adds that the item also improves a man's vigor. A group of disciples becomes interested and asks how they can trade for the item. The hero then announces that he will trade it for just 1 Blackeen soul fruit. One of the men accepts the deal on the spot and makes the trade with the protagonist. Meanwhile, at the sect entrance, Chuling waits with a box of pastries in her hand. She spots the young master returning and calls him with a hopeful smile. The young woman offers his favorite pastries, but he walks right past without even looking at her. She calls him again but is completely ignored by the young man once more. The hero then steps on his own sword and prepares to fly away from there. He thinks that with the 3 treasures in hand, he can leave the mountain to resolve something. The girl calls out to him in surprise, and he turns around with a look of astonishment on his face. She then jumps and begs for the young master to wait for her and not leave her. The protagonist just calls her crazy and doesn't understand what's going on with her. With that, she fires a large pink energy star towards the sky. In the master's courtyard, a large blue energy begins to emanate from inside the room. The disciples wonder how many things the master is hiding and why there is so much cold energy. One of them asks Hanling if the master's tame poison has manifested. The other disciple is confused and asks what this poison is that she doesn't know about. The young woman explains that it's something from the master's physical constitution and causes intense pain. She says it should only happen in a higher realm, and the master hasn't reached it yet. The master questions herself because even with the sacred scripture, the chaos poison doesn't dissipate as before. With this, the woman wonders if it's because she still can't get rid of her dependence on Lu Ye. Suddenly, a loud shout startles the two girls in front of the pavilion. Relieved, the master celebrates that the trace of the chaosian toxin is finally gone for good. Hurrying into the hall, the black-haired friend congratulates the young master for successfully breaking through to the Dao integration realm. Worried about her friend's well-being, the cultivator in blue hears that the danger is past, but the cold energy still ended up invading her body. After checking the master's weak pulse, the dark-haired friend grows suspicious and mentions that an expert of this level shouldn't be so weakened. Suddenly, young Hongling appears at the door by surprise, while the master tries to play it off by saying it is all just nonsense. Master Bai Kilian asks directly about Lu Ye's whereabouts. Answering a bit awkwardly, Hongling reveals that the senior brother disappeared right after winning the tournament and must have gone out to train. Convinced that the young man went to the fallen deity's mountain range, the girl asks if the master wants to go there and take a look. Completely confused by this conversation, the black-haired friend wonders to herself how they know everything, and why she is the only one who does not understand anything. Flying together at high speed, the master and Hongling decide to go after our hero without wasting any time. Furious at their attitude, the dark-haired friend flies right behind them, shouting that she treated the master as her best friend and that this was a betrayal. Right behind them, halfway there, she catches up to the two in the sky and demands to know once and for all what they are hiding from her. Replying very calmly, the master says she was just wondering if her friend would come along, leaving the black-haired girl even more annoyed. Suspiciously staring at Hongling, the cultivator accuses the young girl of being too distracted and of hiding some dark secret as well. Nervous while trying to hide it with a smile, Hongling denies everything and says she was just curious to know how much time was left until they arrived. Facing the cloudy horizon, the brown-haired girl feels guilty in her thoughts and hopes that nothing bad happens to our hero. Full of determination in her eyes, she knows the young man needs to make it through no matter what so she can redeem herself. Taking cautious steps toward the cave, the three women advance with absolute care into the darkened entrance. Near the cave entrance, the group spots the beautiful Linger keeping watch, and the girl immediately asks where the senior brother is. Quickly standing up to greet the newcomers, the guard gets all flustered with the titles of respect when speaking to the master and the martial aunt. Suspicious of all this treatment, the black-haired cultivator feels there is a terrible scandal behind all of this. After explaining that the young man entered the cave and that she is just keeping watch, Linger asks why Hongling looks so worried. Very quietly, with a somber whisper near Linger's ear, Hongling confesses to the girl that she did the exact same awful thing as her in the past. Startled by the shocking revelation, Linger asks in disbelief if she also gave the young man a toxin and which one she used. Without beating around the bush when revealing the secret, Hongling says she used the terrible primordial morning mist on the young man. In complete despair over the news, Linger says they need to rush immediately to check on the young man's condition. Confused because she does not understand the toxin names, the black-haired friend flies right behind them, annoyed that she doesn't know any of these strange details. With her feet planted firmly on a rock, the blue-clad cultivator lands stylishly at the deeper entrance. Facing a defeated giant beetle, the dark-haired girl gets scared, but Linger calms everyone down by saying our hero eliminated all of them. Impressed by the young man's strength, the black-haired friend finds it bizarre that our hero defeated beasts from the nascent soul realm while only being in the origin core realm. Full of confidence in his leadership, Linger points out that all the local barriers were taken down by the young man and they can pass without fear. Inside the massive smoke-filled hall, the group comes across a mysterious altar surrounded by thick mist. Desperate with tears in her eyes, Linger calls out for the young master with her heart in her hands. Relieved upon noticing the environment, Hongling thanks the heavens for realizing the primordial morning mist hasn't burst. With an extremely tight fist, our hero groans in discomfort as he tries to control the chaotic energy inside his body. Sweating cold in the middle of the purple mist, the young man fights bravely endure the overwhelming struggle of his evolution. With a panicked shout upon seeing the smoke, Hongling warns the primordial morning mist managed to follow the group inside. Rushing toward the weakened young man, Linger falls into despair upon seeing the young master collapse to the ground in so much agony. With red eyes shining with fury, our hero glares at the women and authoritatively orders them all to get out of there at once. Desperate while begging him to accept help, Hongling says he won't be able to handle the mist alone and asks the master to use her ice power to freeze him temporarily. With a fierce expression and veins bulging on his face, the young man shouts once more, demanding they get out of his sight. With tears in her eyes as she steps back, Linger accepts the young man's order and decides to just guard the entrance so no one else can pass. Determined to leave because of the rejection, Hongling says she didn't want to stay anyway, while Master Bei follows her, saying he doesn't need help. With a deafening crash right after, a massive explosion of fire and energy destroys the inner passage of the cave. In absolute shock looking back, the master shouts Lu Yi's name upon seeing that the path to the underground tome has been completely blocked. Devastated by the terrible tragedy, Hongling laments, saying she eliminated the young man again, not understanding how he met his end when he had 9 chances. With a soothing blue magic applied to her disciple's forehead, Master Bai asks her to rest a bit and stop blaming herself. Holding the unconscious girl in her arms, the master grows thoughtful and silently wonders how much struggle our hero is enduring all by himself. Cautiously asking about the next step, the black-haired friend questions if they should go in to investigate the rubble. Saddened as she closes her eyes, the master decides to wait a bit longer, letting the time pass for 4 long hours. Feeling a gigantic purple energy appear out of nowhere, the master realizes the young man has reached the nascent soul realm and decides to go in immediately. Through the tunnel illuminated by a purple aura, the woman advances calmly to find the young man in the middle of the darkness. Attentive while observing the young man meditating under a giant energy statue, the master approaches carefully and silently. Directly asking if he is okay, the master is surprised when he says yes and bluntly asks which toxin she planted in him. Serious as she reveals the truth, Master Bai tells him the toxin planted in his body is called the Taiyan marrow worm. With an ironic and bitter laugh, our hero notes that a new toxin appears with every evolution and asks what her rank is on the betrayer's list. Feeling guilty as she lowers her head, the master confesses that she isn't absolutely sure about that either. Surrounded by a dark and powerful aura, the young man says he doesn't want to hear anything else and announces he is heading home. Without looking back as he walks away, the young man mentions the master must have already broken through to the Tao integration realm, leaving her thoughtful on the spot. Our hero throws it in her face that the Chaosian toxin must have already started condensing in her body and gives a sarcastic laugh. While the young master adds that she knows very well the kind of terrible agony that this toxin causes. With loud laughter as he walks away down the cave corridor, the young man leaves Master Bai Killian behind, completely unresponsive and with her head down. Overcome with despair outside, young Hongling shouts for the senior brother in hopes of getting some response. In tears on the ground, the girl desperately asks about the young man's condition after the terrible ordeal. Very calmly trying to comfort her disciple, the master tells Hongling not to worry so much, because the young man is already perfectly fine. Startled by the quick statement, the girl questions if 7 days have already passed, since the primordial morning mist takes that long to fade away. The master reveals that only 1 day has passed, but the young man's calm reaction proves he has overcome the danger. In an attempt to change the subject once and for all, the master tells her to forget Lu Ye and focus on the ancient battlefield that will open in 6 months, where she will see Feng Wuxi. Ignoring the master's advice about the other guy, Hongling jumps up and announces she needs to go watch over the senior brother no matter what. Master Bai concludes in her thoughts that in this lifetime, the young girl has fallen madly in love with our hero. Step by step with determined strides, Hongling approaches the watch post where the beautiful Linger was already waiting for her. Moved by the young master's situation, the girl says she will help keep watch and silently prays for the young man to be okay. Side by side leaning against the wall, the 2 cultivators end up falling asleep from sheer exhaustion after waiting so long. Inside the room amidst an intense golden glow, our hero finally celebrates having managed to overcome the terrible toxin ordeal. With his glowing holy infant in the palm of his hand, the young man is surprised by the absurd effects of the mist he managed to refine. The young man realizes it is not an ordinary holy infant but rather a holy giant. Filled with fury in his glowing red eyes, our hero swears that in this lifetime he will leave all the betrayers eating his dust and in complete despair. Suddenly in the courtyard of the Great Tao sect, a giant bell starts ringing as an order summons all the disciples of the 9th generation. Sitting quietly drinking his tea, the young man hears the noise and wonders what is happening that is so urgent in the sect. Through a glowing holographic screen, the system notifies the host that the ancient battlefield of the Heavenly Prides has just opened. Determined to achieve much more than in his past life, the young man remembers that before he participated at level 6 of the core, and now he is already at level 5 of the nascent soul realm. Dashing quickly atop his red energy, the young man charges straight toward the Great Tao Pavilion. In front of the imposing multi-story pavilion, a massive crowd of disciples is already gathered to hear the instructions. With a serious expression on the balcony, the Vice Master announces that abnormal fluctuations have appeared in the ancient battlefield and that the site will open in the coming days. With full authority while detailing the rules, the Elder says the place only opens once every 1,000 years and anyone under 100 years old can enter. Curious behind the young man in the crowd, Linger asks quietly if the young master is really going to participate in this dangerous journey. Attentive to the Elder's warnings, our hero hears that the place is full of perilous traps and dark spirits, in addition to youths from other dangerous races. Upon hearing about the dangers of betrayal from other sects, the young man stands firm while Hongling watches him from afar. Deep in thought while staring at our hero's back in the middle of the crowd, Hongling wonders if she will ever fight side by side with Feng Wuxi again. Majestically in the middle of the skies, the sect's gigantic flying ship appears to transport the young cultivators. Leaping onto the flying vessel with great agility, our hero is closely followed by Linger, who shouts, begging him to wait for her. Far away in a gloomy floating fortress, dark purple energy spreads as the demons celebrate the opening of the battlefield. Sitting on his spooky skull throne, the demon emperor orders his warriors to eliminate every prodigy of the righteous path without mercy. With his sharp claws dug into a rock, the monster emperor demands the life essence of the strongest humans in exchange for supreme power. In a fierce and wild uproar, the humanoid beasts swear to faithfully obey all the orders of their monster emperor. With its wings spread wide across the dark skies, a mystical bird vows in its thoughts that in this life it will defeat the spirit emperor and bring peace. Atop the flying ship under the blue sky, a talkative disciple approaches our hero and asks if he knows the 9 great factions. With a lot of excitement while explaining the geopolitics, the young man says the only supreme sect is the Eternal Sect and details the 3 great dynasties. Without paying the slightest attention to the chatter, Hongling just watches as the young man continues listing the 5 great sects of the region. Annoyed by the lack of reaction from our hero and the girl, the disciple complains and continues his lecture on the forces of the Heavenly Pavilion and the underworld. With a sudden tug on Hongling's hand, Younglinger excitedly points forward, announcing that they are almost at their destination. In front of everyone down below, a massive circular stone arena surrounded by mist and mountains appears amidst the clouds. Quite envious upon noticing the arrival of another faction, 2 disciples praise the beauty of the women from the Yang Law sect. Walking down the ramp with immense grandeur, the holy son Yang Wufa and the holy maiden Lu Yuan catch the attention of everyone present. Whispering about the 2 newcomers, the guys say it is highly likely they are cultivation partners due to the sect's traditions. High up above riding their flying swords, the powerful cultivators of the Supreme Sword sect make their presence known at the event. Impressed by the sharp energy cutting through the air, the disciples scaredly comment that their own weapons are trembling from sheer shame. With his finger pointing toward the open sky, one of the warriors shouts excitedly, announcing that the great Dao sect has finally arrived. Imposingly and majestically above the stone arena, the Dao sect's ship proves why they are number 1 in the region. With firm and decisive steps at the front of the group as they disembark, our hero leads the beautiful cultivators who follow right behind him with elegant strides. With ulterior motives near Xiaohorong, the holy son Yang Wufa introduces himself formally, trying to find out her name. The guy from the Yang sect decides to flirt with the other 2 girls in the group as well. Directing pure fury at the jerk, Hongling shouts, telling him to get out of there once and for all. Startled by the girl's aggressive reaction, the bold youth gives an awkward smile and decides to back off immediately to avoid trouble. Inwardly amused by the comical scene, our hero remembers with satisfaction that in his past life he had already taught this arrogant guy a harsh lesson. Attentive upon seeing the young man jump from the ship toward the rocky ground, Linger curiously asks where her young master is going in such a hurry. Sitting in a lotus position amidst the dust, with flames all around, the young man begins to cultivate, leaving the girls completely bewildered. Mocking our hero's attitude from afar, 2 disciples comment that trying to train at the last minute is a tremendous, useless waste of time. With a light slap on his mocking friend's back, the other guy tells him to stop paying attention to that and look at the other beauties who have arrived. The 3rd imperial prince of the Supreme Emperor's dynasty, Shangguan Wucheng, arrives at the location accompanied by his sister. The beautiful fairy Shangguan Huanling observes the crowd and notes that all the great prodigies have finally arrived. Noticing the girl's presence from afar, our hero realizes she has also reincarnated, but decides to ignore her since she has no relevance in this life. Surprised upon spotting the young man in the crowd, the young fairy is shocked to realize he is surrounded by a golden energy. Curious about the attitude of the other 2 betrayers beside him, the girl wonders why they are acting like that when they should resent him. With ulterior motives upon noticing the beauty of our hero's companions, the prince offers a compliment, but is warned by his sister not to provoke the young man. Annoyed by his little sister's warning, the prince laughs mockingly and promises he will use the young man as an example on the battlefield. Not holding back in her direct response, the fairy says her brother will end up being eliminated if he tries to do that, while he just laughs at the warning. The girl starts giggling softly, showing that she has wicked plans in mind. In her thoughts, the fairy decides that using our hero's hands to get rid of her own arrogant brother will be a perfect plan. Confident in his supposed superiority, the crown prince smirks, never imagining the trap his own sister is setting for him. After one day of the Great Gathering, a gigantic spiral energy portal opens in the skies with overwhelming force. With shouts of pure excitement, the disciples of the sect celebrate the official opening of the ancient battlefield of the Heavenly Prides. Without wasting a single second, our hero dashes toward the heavenly vortex at high speed. Desperate seeing the young man having to pull away quickly, the loyal Linger shouts, begging the young master to wait for her. Dashing rapidly right behind, the warriors from the other factions rush so they don't let the Dao sect disciple arrive first. Furious at his rival's audacity, the holy son Yang Wufa tries to cut off the young man's path to stop him from being the first. Amidst a powerful trail of energy, both ascend toward the portal to begin the great dispute for the top. With his feet firmly planted on rocky ground after crossing the portal, our hero comes face to face with his red-haired rival. The young man asks if his weird habit is acting up again, leaving the rival completely taken aback. Cold in his direct words, our hero guarantees that this time, that terrible vice will never bother anyone ever again. Summoning an immense black and white energy barrier, the opponent swears he will return to normal as soon as he takes the young man out. With great ease while dodging the initial attack, our hero ironically praises the arrogant opponent's combat skills. Through his supreme yin-yang annihilation technique, the opponent launches a massive whirlwind of destructive energy at the young man. Facing the massive attack, our hero brings his fists together wrapped in golden flames as he remembers the enemy's limitations. The young master mentally asserts that this strike represents the rival's absolute limit. Focused as he concentrates all the power of his celestial venerable fist, the young man prepares to unleash a devastating fire counterattack. With colossal force upon unleashing the blazing strike, our hero throws a gigantic fire punch at the enemy. Desperate upon seeing the barrier easily shattered by the young man's technique, the opponent screams, unable to believe the absurd strength of the punch. Hurled violently against the mountain's stone wall, the holy sun coughs heavily and collapses, completely defeated by a single strike. Coldly staring at the fallen and humiliated opponent, our hero disdainfully comments that in this life, the rival couldn't withstand even one punch from him. Without any ceremony upon approaching the fallen fighter, the young man takes the defeated enemy's storage ring as a reward. Looking toward the mysterious horizon, the young master decides that the time has finally come to recover his old legendary sword. Shocked to find the defeated warrior's body pinned against the destroyed rock, disciples from other factions wonder what happened there. Terrified upon recognizing the victim, the group is left in disbelief that the powerful holy sun was taken down so quickly. High up in the skies with a loud crack, the warrior's life soul stone shatters, drawing everyone's attention. Desperate upon seeing the bright signal in the sky, the holy maiden Lu Yuan realizes in horror that her partner has just perished. Quickly setting off to investigate the scene, the beautiful warrior tries to figure out who would be capable of eliminating her partner so fast. Gossiping about what happened, other disciples say the holy sun's and was useless and his sect suffered a historic humiliation. With a wicked smirk, the crown prince Shangguan Wucheng rejoices, thinking that things in the tournament are going to get quite entertaining. Charging swiftly straight into the glowing portal, the arrogant prince advances without noticing his sister's cold gaze right behind him. With a sinister smile on her red lips, the fairy whispers to herself that a devastating surprise awaits her arrogant brother. Standing before the legendary mountain range of stone swords, our hero comes across thousands of blades embedded in the mountainside. Looking thoughtfully at his own hands, the young man confesses in his thoughts that he has never wielded another weapon since losing his favorite one. With a fearsome vibration that makes the whole mountain shake, the stone swords start to buzz with a red energy. Flying at high speed straight toward him, hundreds of sharp blades shoot out like a deadly storm of metal. With extreme precision using his bare hands, our hero defends against every attack, breaking the swords that try to strike him. With taunts and a defiant smile, the young master shouts, calling all the remaining blades into combat. Amidst an endless rain of destructive red energy, the swords surround the young man from all possible sides. With just one finger raised in total serenity, the young master announces that this little game has gone on long enough. Unleashing a devastating shockwave with his hidden power, our hero blasts all the stones away and clears the air around him. Heading straight for the largest and brightest sword stuck at the top of the mountain, the young man celebrates his triumphant return. With absolute authority before the massive red blade engulfed in flames, the young man orders his old partner to come back to him. Very affectionately touching the magical structure, the young master confesses he missed it immensely during all these years of separation. Gripping the hilt of the red flame engulfed sword very firmly, the young man asks his weapon not to be afraid and never to get lost again. Surprised when the sword erupts in a fierce red energy of repulsion, our hero steps back, startled by its spiritual strength. Furious through their mental link, the sword spirits the young man for spouting nonsense and angrily denies having any sort of fear. Amused by his old weapon's aggressive reaction, the young man swears he will make it the most powerful sword in all of heaven and earth. Excited by the bold promise of greatness, the sword spirit asks who those other famous weapons the young man mentioned are. Our hero directly asks if it wants to be the strongest blade of all or not. The spirit of the legendary weapon accepts the young man's deal without hesitation. With a swift and extremely elegant motion, the young master draws his stone sword, making a beam of light slice through the air. Without asking for his partner's opinion, our hero decides to name the new weapon Stone Sword, nicknaming the spirit Little Pebble. Amused by the outrage of the spirit who hates the new name, the young master guarantees that this will be its permanent name. Turning a deaf ear to the sword spirit's constant complaints, the young man just continues on his way as a woman's footsteps approach him. Kneeling with great respect before her young master, the loyal Linger congratulates the young man on retrieving his old combat weapon. Afraid of the sudden dark, the grumpy sword spirit agrees to enter the young man's spiritual space despite complaining about the awful name. Curious about the young master's destination, Linger asks where they are heading now that the legendary stone weapon has been recovered. Standing before a tall and mysterious cliff, the young man observes the bubbling water of the sacred lake just below. Punching the water directly with great courage, our hero decides to return to the first level of the battlefield to collect valuable treasures. Known as the Supreme Crystal Water Lake, the place has the power to improve the aptitude of those who bathe in it thanks to a magical pearl. During the deep dive into the water, one of the disciples remembers that in her past life, the senior brother retrieved the magic pearl for her. Determined to get the valuable artifact on her own in this new life, the beautiful Hongling dives into the deep waters of the lake. Along with several other greedy cultivators, the arrogant imperial prince Shangguan Wuching also joins the aquatic contest. Breathless upon reaching a depth of 2,000 meters, one of the disciples frantically announces he can no longer handle the pressure and rushes back up. Terrified of drowning due to the high water pressure, another warrior gives up the search and decides to return immediately to the surface. Much deeper than all the other competitors, only the arrogant prince and young Honglin continue their descent. Thanks to their proximity in the deep dive, the imperial prince decides to strike up a conversation and introduces himself formally, trying to learn her name. Direct in her mental reply transmitted via telepathy, the girl reveals she knows who he is and mentions his sister, Huanling. Surprised to learn she knows his little sister, the prince makes a bold invitation, but is told that everything depends on how deep he can swim. Confident in his immense physical stamina, the arrogant guy claims with a smirk that going down another 1,000 meters is child's play. The prince shoots off toward the dark depths of the sacred lake. With a devastating water strike launched by surprise, Hongling attacks the young man, generating a violent current that catches him off guard. Caught off guard by the fierce impact, the imperial heir tries to stabilize himself against the absurd force of the water flow. Fiercely wielding his heaven-slicing halberd, the prince unleashes a powerful slash in an attempt to break the attack's flow. Showing no hesitation in battle, the young cultivator readies her secret seal technique. After summoning a giant eastern dragon made entirely of blue water, the girl launches the mystical beast straight at the arrogant rival. Infuriated by the unknown girl's absurd audacity, the prince yells in anger as he realizes the devastating power of her attack. Struck head-on by the water dragon's colossal force, the prince coughs up life essence into the water and fearfully realizes his opponent's terrifying power. Satisfied as she watches her opponent get tossed upward by the current, Hongling tells the guy to be a good boy and float back to the surface. Determined not to let anyone interfere with her grand goal, the young warrior continues her high-speed descent. Close to reaching the impressive mark of 2,500 meters deep, she remembers the young man said the lake was 3,000 meters deep. Upon finally reaching the 3,000-meter mark, the girl despairs when she realizes the bottom of the lake is still far out of reach. With tears in her eyes and feeling betrayed, the cultivator realizes in shock that her senior brother lied to her. While past 4,000 meters deep under extreme pressure, she begins to uncover the reason for the lie. Surprised to spot an intense blue glow deep in the abyss, the young warrior realizes the young man hid its true, agonizing depth from her. She emotionally celebrates finally finding the sacred pearl. Holding the pearl with her fingertips, the girl feels the immense spiritual energy radiating from the blue pearl. Aware of the sacred pearl's incredible benefits, she knows that merging with the artifact can heal her body and improve her innate aptitude. Deep in thought as she recalls our hero's calm expression, she realizes the terrible struggle the young man went through in the past to get that item. With tears flowing from her eyes underwater, she understands that the young man resisted the temptation and left the pearl for her out of pure sacrifice. Moved and crying at the revelation, the girl acknowledges that no one has ever treated her so well, and that not even her beloved Feng Wuxi compares to him. Motionless and floating in the lake's vast blue expanse, she sadly admits that her affection for her senior brother is just gratitude, since her heart only beats faster for Feng. With the glowing artifact pressed respectfully against her chest, she swears she will do anything for the young man in this new life of trials. Determined as she swallows the blue pearl with absolute conviction, the young woman begins the process of assimilating intense spiritual energy to evolve. With a massive eruption on the surface of the sacred lake, a huge pillar of blue water and energy shoots straight toward the sky. Free from the water and completely renewed as she exudes colossal power, the young woman celebrates managing to advance to the nascent soul realm. Calmly standing on a dry rock with his halberd, the arrogant prince reappears, calling the girl for another round of combat. The warrior asserts that he had no chance in the water, let alone now. Swiftly lunging with fury to strike from above with his golden halberd, the prince yells that they will only know by fighting for real. Standing firm as she fearlessly focuses the power of flames into her divine fist, the young woman delivers a colossal fire punch against the opponent. With an absurd blast that shatters the surrounding rocks, the girl's flaming punch easily overpowers the arrogant prince's strike. Wreathed in flames and demonstrating total superiority after the devastating blow, the cultivator asks if the opponent still wants to keep fighting. Fallen on the ground and completely terrified by her strength, the prince realizes in horror that her power has multiplied several times since the lake. Back at the 100 Herbs Valley in the first heaven of the battlefield, a new warrior steps firmly onto the green soil. Walking calmly through the mystical valley with folded arms, our hero recalls that the true wealth of the place lies in the complex hidden array formations. Focused on his grand goal of spiritual evolution, the young man plans to condense a second life using the valley's treasures. Focusing his gaze upon spotting the top of a tall and glowing cliff, the young master locks his eyes on the coveted golden celestial sunflower. With an agile leap toward the cliff at extreme speed, our hero shatters the defensive arrays, leaving a rival intrigued. Impressed by the absurd speed at which the arrays were deciphered, the braided young array master wonders who this unknown genius is. Jumping off the cliff with great agility, our hero offers to help the array genius dismantle the magic barrier. Completely startled by the sudden appearance of the light-surrounded guy, the youth stammers, asking if he is a man or a ghost. The braided boy compliments our hero, saying he is way too handsome. Curious upon hearing the rival's funny compliment, the young master asks his name and discovers it is the humble Li Huiyu. Focused and with a terrifying red glow in his eye, the young man tells his new partner to focus on breaking the barrier with his heart. With quick and highly precise gestures, our hero begins to alter and dismantle the golden magic circles of the array. In absolute shock upon witnessing the impossible scene, the barrier genius realizes the young man altered the very foundation of the array. Focused as he quickly jots everything down in his notebook, the little genius understands that only the weak try to break barriers while the strong rewrite them. Stretching his arm upward with determination, our hero finally harvests the coveted golden celestial sunflower. Quickly leaping away with the treasure in hand, the young master bids farewell to his partner, saying they will meet again in the future. Shouting desperately from below, the array genius laments that he still hasn't learned the mysterious savior's name. Enveloped in a suddenly appearing purple smoke, the boy desperately realizes that the barrier our hero altered has generated a new illusion. Terrified upon seeing heavily muscled, makeup-wearing warriors blowing kisses, the braided youth wonders what kind of bizarre illusion that is. With tears of despair while complaining about the punishment, the young man questions why our hero didn't leave 8 beautiful maidens instead of those monsters. Known as the Heavenly Spiritual Well, the place ahead is rich in energy and holds miraculous cultivation properties. Taking calm steps near the sacred lake, our hero advances through the forest showing absolutely no sign of worry. Injured and crawling in pain across the dirt floor, one disciple desperately begs for the young man's help to survive. Straight from the sky with his bat wings spread, a flying demon laughs and warns that our hero will also meet his end right there. With a quick dodge followed by a red energy counterattack, the young man evades the monster with great ease. Surrounded by several other winged monsters descending from the trees, our hero gets a warning from the injured disciple to be careful. Cold and out of patience for small talk, the young master gives a deadly glare and warns that the enemy talks too much. Swiftly slicing all the flying demons in half with a single strike of his red sword, our hero complains that they are way too annoying. Grateful for the heroic help, Disciple Jilian from the Heaven Earth sect swears he will return the favor in the future. Giving no importance to the guy's promise of gratitude, the young master simply turns his back and continues on his way. Facing a war zone filled with fallen cultivators on the ground, our hero concludes that the great battle has already begun. Running desperately in the opposite direction, several disciples announce that the monsters have taken over the spiritual well and the humans have formed an alliance. Curious upon hearing about the union of human warriors, the young man asks who is responsible for leading this initiative. Answering quickly as he keeps running away, the disciple reveals the leader as Yu Hongling and the safe zone is just up ahead. Determined to head in the opposite direction to investigate the spiritual lake, our hero realizes things have changed because of his martial sister. Yelling worriedly from afar as he sees the young man heading toward danger, the disciple warns he is running straight toward his own downfall. At the heavenly spiritual well overrun by beasts, several monsters continue eliminating any human cultivators who show up. Arriving calmly and with total ease at the edge of the glowing lake, our hero catches the attention of an arrogant leopard monster. Laughing loudly and disdainfully upon seeing the guy alone, the leopard beast mocks the audacity of that ignorant human who dares to face them. Taking slow, heavy steps as it steps out of the water, the strong monster readies its claws to strike the young man. Looking back quickly at his monstrous allies, the leopard asks laughingly what they think will happen next. With wild and terrifying laughter, one giant wolf claims our hero will cry and beg for mercy in agony. Amused by the young man's humiliation, the leopard adds that the human will beg for a quick and painless end. Suddenly, with a deadly black slash cutting right through the leopard's chest, the monster is caught by surprise, unable to comprehend the attack. Putting his red blade away with a swift motion, our hero notes that villains always meet their end from talking too much. Furious upon seeing their leader eliminated so easily, the other monsters rush to take revenge on the young man no matter what. Efficiently slicing through dozens of beasts in the blink of an eye with swift energy slashes, our hero advances like a true reaper across the field. Surprised by a sneak attack from above, the young man notices a purple energy projectile descending toward him. Agilely dodging it with ease and looking up, the young master sees a shower of toxic feathers being launched at him. Annoyed by the mess caused by the purple feathers, our hero complains that the creature is polluting the beautiful natural environment. With an overwhelming vertical slash of red energy, the young man instantly splits the toxic bird right down the middle. Coldly glaring at the survivors trembling in fear, the young master asks what he should do with the rest of them. In complete panic before the young man's monstrous strength, one demon bull and one demon horse are paralyzed by terror. Kneeling on the ground begging for their lives with their hands up, the two monsters ask to be used as beasts of burden. With a dark smirk and his red eye glowing, our hero says he will make just one more strike, leaving their fate in the hands of luck. After unleashing the devastating energy strike, the young man calmly steps into the sacred lake's water to relax and enjoy the peace. Inside a dark cave serving as a base for the beasts, one desperate messenger warns the celestial centipede king about the strong human. Terrified and shaking with panic while reporting the tragedy, the bat demon reveals that the young man eliminated almost all the monsters at the sacred well entirely on his own. Thoughtful while resting his face on his hand upon his stone throne, the celestial centipede king asks if the human is really that scary. Shouting desperately with his eyes wide in dread, the messenger swears the young man is a terrible monster who defeated dozens with one single strike. Suddenly grabbed by dark purple smoke tentacles, the messenger is violently lifted into the air by his own leader. Coldly eliminating his own frightened soldier without any mercy, the Centipede King says the humans seem strong, but they have another plan. The leader orders them to hunt down the powerful Feng Wuxi first. Kneeling before the throne after an intense search of the region, one wolf demon servant reports he finally discovered the target's whereabouts. Pleased with the excellent news regarding the location, the king orders all his soldiers to depart immediately to eliminate Feng Wuxi. The villain vows to wipe the Phoenix clan off the face of the earth once and for all. From the top of a tall and imposing mountain, young Hongling observes all the gathered warriors and mentally celebrates, putting the group together. The girl silently vows that in this life she will do everything our hero accomplished in his past life. Standing before the entire attentive crowd at the base of the rock, she announces that the human stronghold has been established, and now she needs to leave. Surprised by the Alliance leader's sudden announcement, the warriors confusedly ask where the fairy intends to go. Dashing off right after, the girl happily replies that she is going after her true love and bids everyone farewell. Coughing repeatedly with a lot of life essence dripping from his mouth, young Feng Wuxi suffers intensely while collapsed on the path. Terrified of meeting his end at the Centipede King's hands, the young man points out that both belong to the monster race and asks the reason for the chase. With extreme coldness while floating above his victim, the villainous leader claims the weak are natural prey for the strong, and he doesn't give explanations to weaklings. Furious at the opponent's cowardice, the injured man challenges the king to a fair one-on-one fight without his henchman's help. The Centipede King asks if he should also hide his legs to make it fair. The young man vows revenge against that filthy race just as he hears a cry for help. Sprinting swiftly toward the weakened guy, Hongling pretends to be in danger by letting out a fake cry for help. Blushing completely upon laying eyes on the unknown young woman, the mystical guy finds the girl extremely beautiful. Rushing right past the guy while pretending to be in trouble, the cultivator continues her acting plan to recreate the past. Deep in thought while taking a sideways glance at the gray-haired guy, she fondly remembers how he never left her heart. The girl says she is also running for her life, and the young man starts running alongside her. Noticing the two targets escaping through the forest, the demons team up with the monsters to hunt down and eliminate the fleeing pair. Curious during the high-speed sprint, the girl asks what the young man to have so many furious demons chasing him. Confident in her own true skills, she knows she could wipe out all the pursuers if she wasn't faking their first encounter. The young man claims those ugly monsters are just jealous of his beautiful face. Amused by his self-loving reply, the cultivator realizes his behavior is very similar to Lu Yi's. Shaking her head in embarrassment with her cheeks flushed red, she annoyed wonders why she is thinking about our hero right now of all times. Meanwhile, at the sacred spiritual well, our hero relaxes in the water, celebrating that he reached the 6th level of the nascent soul realm in 3 days. Inconveniently interrupting the young man's peace with a religious chant, one Buddhist sect monk appears, asking the youth to cultivate somewhere else. The young master notices the arrival of the wisdom sect and warns them not to provoke him. Standing before the lake with hands clasped together, the Buddhist monk insists the well holds a sacred light and demands the young man's immediate departure. Cold in his direct words, our hero asks if the wisdom sect is truly determined to expel him from there by force. Surrounded by several other bald, light-robed monks, the leader warns that if the young man won't listen to reason, they will use the force of their fists. Annoyed to see the monk stealing his classic intimidation line, our hero bursts into yellow fury and decides not to forgive such audacity. The young master attacks the entire group of monks all at once. With total disdain looking at his opponents knocked in the water, our hero complains that they were just a bunch of useless nuisances. Back to the couple fleeing desperately through the forest, the gray-haired guy asks if she knows any safe place for them to hide. Confident in her senior brother's power, the girl says they need to find him, because around him all the pursuers are just weaklings. Curious about his new partner's bold claim, the young monster asks if her senior brother is really that powerful. Running swiftly right behind her while glancing at the monster horde in the rear, the guy asks her to put in a good word for him with her senior brother. Desperately trying to ensure his safety, the youth swears he is a good monster and has never eaten a human being in his life. The girl says her brother doesn't harm innocents and asks if he has a way to shake off the pack. Standing firm upon promising to use a powerful attack to shake off the enemies, the youth asks in return that she guarantees to take him along on the trip. With utter sincerity in her bright eyes, the girl gives her word of honor, saying she made that entire trip just for him. Suddenly stopping in the middle of the path, surrounded by yellow flames, the young monster concentrates all his mystical power. With golden eyes glowing with power as he unleashes his hidden energy, the young man commands the start of the devastating fire attack. After summoning a giant phoenix made entirely of sacred fire, the young monster launches the mystical creature at the pursuing horde. In complete despair as they see the firebird advancing, the monsters shout for everyone to run away upon discovering the young man is a phoenix. Destructively burning everything in its path with a colossal explosion of flames, the fire phoenix decimates the monster horde in seconds. Tired as he collapses exhausted into the girl's arms right after the strong attack, the young man groans in pain due to extreme battle fatigue. Looking closely and surprised at the young cultivator holding him affectionately, the young monster confusedly asks how she knows his name. Smiling timidly with her cheeks flushed from shyness, the girl replies, lying that she had heard of his name before. Intrigued by the mystery of having never heard of her before, the young man is interrupted by the girl, who says they need to find her senior brother quickly. Walking slowly together with difficulty through the forest, the young phoenix wonders why her senior brother hasn't shown up at the location yet. The girl embarrassedly admits she ended up getting lost on the way. With a charming smile looking at his blushing partner, the guy says he won't blame her since she is such a beautiful woman. Attentive as they spot a narrow rocky gorge just ahead, the couple realizes that terrain is perfect for holding off an entire army. Taking a firm guard stance at the canyon's narrow entrance, the girl tells the guy to rest until he regains his strength so they can take turns. The Centipede King and his horde of servants surround the canyon entrance. Swiftly throwing a colossal yellow flame punch at the first invaders, the girl furiously orders them to get out of there. Completely shocked by the devastating power of his partner's punch, the young phoenix wonders why she was running away earlier. Shouting furiously from above with its wings spread, the bat monster orders all servants to eliminate the couple immediately. Agilely defending against every attack with precise martial arts strikes, the warrior blocks the beasts trying to invade the pass. Sadistically shouting with his sharp teeth bared in anger, the Centipede King orders his soldiers to keep attacking to exhaust the girl until she falls. Agilely leaping into the air with quick spins and kicks charged with golden energy, the young woman takes down several monsters, keeping the canyon defense impenetrable. Wrapped in his bright green aura, young Feng Wuxi watches the fight in awe and wonders why the girl doesn't just finish off the monsters right away. The cultivator remembers in her thoughts that in the past life, it was him who saved her when she lost her strength. Standing in front of the girl to protect her from the beasts, the young man wonders if the saving history will repeat itself again. Suddenly, in the middle of the dust, a dark monster claw lunges toward young Hongling. Slyly faking weakness to be saved on purpose, the girl lets out a cry of pain as she is hit by the enemy's strike. Worried as he holds his partner in his arms with concern, the guy takes over the fight and tells the young woman to rest to regain her strength. Staring intently at the young man's arm, the cultivator confusedly wonders why her heart doesn't beat faster like it used to. Surrounded by several demons descending from the sky at high speed, the young phoenix braces himself for the difficult fight. In a lot of pain after taking several consecutive blows from the beasts, the young man begins to suffer intensely from the enemy attacks. Thrown far back by the purple force of the enemy attack, the youth lets out a cry of pain as he collapses injured. Worried about the injured guy's condition, the girl asks if he can still endure the difficult fight. With a quick curry chop delivered right to her partner's neck, the young woman decides to knock him out to end the charade. Quickly walking away from the unconscious guy on the ground, she realizes her old crush is gone and decides to leave without wasting time. Facing the girl at the canyon exit, the Centipede King demands she hand over the phoenix, promising not to interfere in other fights. Focused and with her eyes glowing in a golden shade of pure power, the cultivator vows to act without any kind of fear. Devastatingly causing absurd destruction at the gorge's entrance, a massive explosion of flames takes out almost all the enemies. Leaving a giant handprint carved into the rocky ground, the young master walks away from the scene with utter tranquility. Furious after surviving the strong attack, the Centipede King lunges with his dark claws, swearing to take the girl down with him. Glaring at her declining opponent, the cultivator prepares the finishing blow. Swiftly delivering a devastating kick right to the demon leader's chest, the young woman crushes the enemy against the rocky ground. With a serious expression on her imposing face, the girl announces that the final blow was dedicated specially to Feng Wuxi. Lying on the dirt ground crying in pure panic, the humiliated villain asks why she pretended to run away if she was so powerful. Giving the defeated monster no explanation at all, the young woman just watches him in silence as he realizes he was fooled the whole time. From now on, the Wisdom Sect monks find their defeated comrades on the ground and scream in despair. Furious to see his allies fallen and hurt on the lake shore, the monk leader asks if our hero was responsible for the eliminations. Coldly staring at the intruders from afar, our hero replies that those who disturb his isolated cultivation deserve nothing but a swift defeat. Extremely angry at the guy's cold reply, the monk accuses the youth of acting like a soulless demon and swears to punish him right there. After forming an 18-hat barrier above the glowing water, the bald, light-robed monks prepare to attack together. Annoyed at seeing the group try to surround him in the sacred well, the dark-haired guy swears to take them all down at once. With rapid red energy slashes crossing the air, our hero sends all the monks flying away in the blink of an eye. Satisfied seeing the opponents easily defeated in the water, the guy comments they were just a big waste of time. At the makeshift camp around a campfire at night, young Hongling and the recovered phoenix sit uncomfortably. Thoughtful while staring at the bright campfire flames, the girl wonders why the mood between the two of them became so weird and dull. A bit dizzy as he wakes up confused after the forced knockout, the gray-haired guy asks if he ended up passing away in the battle. With a lot of irony in her voice when answering her partner, the cultivator assures him he is perfectly alive and safe. Curious looking around and no longer seeing the pursuing monsters, the young man wants to know how they managed to escape the dangerous canyon. Blatantly lying to hide her own absurd power, the girl makes up that her senior brother showed up and defeated the beasts. Upon learning of her senior brother's departure, the young phoenix rejoices at finally being alone with the beautiful fairy. Giving absolutely no hope to the cocky flirt, the cultivator cuts him off, saying that will only happen in his dreams. Deciding to leave now that he is in good health, the girl will bid a cold farewell, leaving the confused guy behind. Quickly tossing a glowing magic communication shell toward the guy, the young woman tells him to use the artifact if he needs urgent help. Curiously examining the beautiful glowing artifact in his hands with a silly smile, the phoenix wonders if the girl is truly in love with him. Attentively speaking through the magic communicator in the middle of a dangerous forest, the girl says she is busy training and has no time for chatting. Desperate while asking for shelter, because he is alone and without resources in the area, the guy begs to meet up with her no matter what. Coldly disconnecting the call without any prior warning, the cultivator leaves the guy talking to himself with the magic shell in the middle of nowhere. Surprised by the approach of an unknown warrior near the campfire, the phoenix hears a heavy insult about not being worthy of the girl. Standing before the frightened youth in the camp appears the imposing and terrifying little dragon king of the monster race. Very afraid upon recognizing the terrible enemy leader right in front of him, the young phoenix breaks into a cold sweat out of pure dread. Surrounded by several armed guards with wolf faces encircling the place, the young man stutters, asking what they want with him. With a loud roar and sharp teeth bared in the dark night, the Dragon King orders his soldiers to capture the prisoner immediately. Inside a damp and dark dungeon at the monster base, the leader demands to know what the prisoner's true relationship with Hongling is. Bound by glowing magical chains of green energy to the wall, the injured guy replies with a stutter that they are just good friends. With a sadistic look while interrogating the chained victim, the Dragon King asks if the prisoner ever even touched the famous warrior. Desperately denying everything while coughing heavily in fear, the phoenix receives a violent slap to the face from the irritated leader. Extremely angry at the humiliating situation in the dark dungeon, the young man swears that all this suffering is exclusively Hongling's fault. Determined to betray his partner to save his own skin from the torture, the phoenix offers to help lure the girl into a deadly ambush. Sadistically holding the glowing magic communicator near the bruised prisoner's face, the king tells him to speak carefully on the call. Across the region under a cloudy sky, Hongling's magic shell glows, and she hears the young man say he is severely injured. Happy to see the girl answered the fake distress call, the traitor begs her to come meet him at the Flying Thunder Mountain. With terrifying purple lightning cutting through the dark clouds at the peak, the Flying Thunder Mountain awaits the young warrior's arrival. Tied up with red ropes on top of a bed, young Hongling lowers her head with an expression of total suffering. With the shell communicator dropped on the bedroom floor, our hero's cold voice announces that Feng Wuxi has just perished. Showing absolutely no compassion in his direct speech, the young man guarantees there wasn't even a single trace left of the deceased. In tears crying out in despair while still tied up, the girl blames our hero for the tragedy, claiming he stopped her from saving her friend. Furious at the girl's ingratitude, the senior youth tells her to be quiet and explains that it was all a trap set to catch him. With an accusing look even in the face of the warnings, the young woman insists the senior brother just wanted to possess her, and that's why he let his rival perish on purpose. Quickly walking toward the bedroom door without looking back, the young man just coldly apologizes for the situation. Facing the heavy rain in the present day, the girl repents in her thoughts and promises that this time she will not let the trap happen. With a serious look amidst the storm, the cultivator announces she will need to step away from sect activities for a while. Ready to leave her two trusted generals in charge, the girl orders them to suspend all attacks and focus entirely on defense. Displeased by the sudden retreat order, the giant bronze-skinned warrior questions why they are stopping if humanity has the advantage. Focused on the group's real strengthening, the young woman explains they need to focus on refining precious materials to raise their level. Taking decisive steps as she walks away under the cold rain, the girl warns that attacking without a solid foundation is a fatal mistake that will cost everything. Standing firm as she shows yellow flames at her fingertips, she dismisses the giant's company, saying she isn't looking for fights. Speeding off into the foggy horizon, the girl gives one last piece of advice, telling them to seek our hero's help if everything goes wrong. Completely perplexed by the leader's strong statement, the braided giant wonders if her senior brother really is that strong. Meanwhile, at the sacred spiritual well, the system's electronic voice cheerfully chimes in, announcing the start of a great dramatic spectacle. Without breaking his focus from his daily cultivation, the black-haired guy tells the virtual shell to watch it all by itself if it wants. The magic screen says watching alone is too boring and insists he follow the broadcast. Paying close attention upon seeing the screen display the image of young Hongling flying through the skies in the rain, the magic screen asks if the girl has any chance of escaping unharmed. Focused as he analyzes the complex array set up on the mountain, our hero realizes that even if she had wings, it would be impossible to escape there alive. With an upbeat notice that the guest has arrived at the dangerous destination, the system displays the image of the girl descending into the forest. Quickly arriving at the mountain in the pouring rain, the girl uses the communicator, calling out for her partner and asking where he is. Suddenly bursting violently from the shadows, a gigantic gray monster appears, shoving the young woman straight into the magic barrier. Dodging with great agility from a huge rigged wooden log, the girl masterfully evades the impact. Unleashing her mountain-crushing seal technique, the cultivator knocks out one of the servants with a heavy punch. Suddenly trapped by giant magic circles appearing in the air, she gets scared by the activation of the 3 forbidden arrays. After forming an 18-hour hat barrier above the glowing water, the bald, light-robed monks prepare to attack together. Annoyed at seeing the group try to surround him in the sacred well, the dark-haired guy swears to take them all down at once. With rapid red energy slashes crossing the air, our hero sends all the monks flying away in the blink of an eye. Satisfied seeing the opponents easily defeated in the water, the guy comments they were just a big waste of time. At the makeshift camp around a campfire at night, young Hongling and the recovered phoenix sit uncomfortably. Thoughtful while staring at the bright campfire flames, the girl wonders why the mood between the two of them became so weird and dull. During the painful memory of her past life, the dark-haired young man tried to stop her from going, warning her of the grave danger. Extremely stubborn in the argument from the past, the girl insisted the monsters knew nothing of her relationship with the phoenix. Cold in his direct orders, our hero forbade her from leaving, causing the girl to threaten to end it all right there in front of him. With a precise blow delivered to the back of her neck to knock her out cold, the senior guy made the hardest decision of his life. Saddened as he sighed in pain with the girl in his arms, our hero decided to go in her place to face the point of no return danger. Carefully leaving the girl lying safely on the bedroom bed, the young man sacrificed himself to save the cursed traitor in the underground tomb. Back to the present at the edge of the gorge, the little dragon king mockingly asks if the young woman wants to see her beloved phoenix. With a sadistic smile, when ordering the guards, the leader commands them to bring the injured prisoner out in front of everyone. Brutally thrown to his knees on the stone floor, young Feng Wuxi appears all bruised and covered in scars. Shocked to see her partner's deplorable state in the middle of the array, the girl asks how he ended up getting beaten like that. Violently pulling the prisoner's gray hair, the Dragon King warns her not to twist things in the conversation. Bluntly revealing the betrayal in a raw manner, the monster leader says he hit the prisoner because he feels disgusted by someone who offers to betray their own friends. With her heart completely shattered upon hearing the terrible truth, the girl asks in shock if the betrayal is real. The Dragon King claims that even monsters have a minimum of honor in battle. Furiously shouting in hatred from the ground at the girl, the phoenix blames her for all the suffering, complaining that she was strong and didn't protect him. Unable to believe the filthy character of the boy she loved, the cultivator whispers his name, horrified by the scene. Angry as he curses the young woman, calling her a shameless wretch with his eyes wide in hatred, the phoenix reveals all his moral decay in front of everyone. The girl asks the Dragon King to leave the phoenix for her to eliminate herself. Firm as she focuses all her golden spiritual energy around her body, the young woman challenges all the monsters to come at her all at once. Attentively watching the broadcast from afar at the sacred well, our hero notes that the constant battles are accelerating the girl's evolution. The system asks how he manages to make cultivation assessments amidst so much drama. Our hero explains she hasn't broken down in despair yet because she hasn't reached absolute pain. Focused as he elevates his spiritual strength with a large splash of sacred water, the young man celebrates his advancement to the 9th level of the nascent soul realm. Panting due to extreme battle fatigue at the top of the mountain, the young warrior fights bravely to stay on her feet. Agilely unleashing her Oblivion Seal technique against the invaders, the girl blasts away another horde of demon wolves. Worried while observing the combat from the top of the cliff, the Dragon King realizes the human girl cannot not be allowed to survive and evolve. Determined to end the girl's journey no matter what, the villain warns that the monster clan will face ruin if she escapes from there. The little Dragon King orders his henchmen to intensify their attacks against the girl. With a deafening thunderclap, a massive storm of purple lightning crashes right down on young Hongling. Fallen to her knees with her body all burned and wounded, the cultivator tries to withstand the terrible electrical discharge. Facing the bat demon descending from the sky screaming for a defeat, the girl defends herself using the Divine Light Seal. Panting to the extreme effort of the relentless fight, the young woman tries to catch her breath while the beasts doubt her resilience. With her face covered in scrapes and deep wounds, the girl takes a deep breath and asks who will be the next to face her. Up on top of the rock with his halberd in hand, the Centipede King announces that it's their turn to attack together. With a frightened look seeing the sky darken even more, the young woman realizes a new storm of purple lightning is forming. Sad feeling the full weight of exhaustion and pain in her bruised body, the girl wonders how her senior brother managed to escape that in the past. During the painful memory of her past life, our hero appeared covered in wounds and injuries, kneeling on the ground after fighting everyone. The senior youth would affectionately say that he had returned safely to save her. From one moment to the next in the terrible present combat, a gigantic and destructive blue lightning bolt strikes the ground with full force. Violently thrown backward by the thunder's impact, the girl lets out a loud groan of deep pain. The cultivator mentally laments knowing that her senior brother sacrificed himself even knowing the danger. Fiercely charging forward with a gigantic fist charged with pure destructive energy, the Centipede King unleashes a finishing blow. Smashed against the stone wall due to the colossal impact, the young woman screams in pain as she feels her bones cracking. With a loud and mocking laugh upon seeing his rival completely defeated, the demon leader celebrates the easy victory. The Bat Demon celebrates, saying the greatest human prodigy will meet her end at his hands. Facing imminent defeat with the sword almost touching her skin, the girl keeps her gaze firm and fearless. The young woman disdainfully asks if the monster thinks he is worthy of finishing her off. Swiftly unleashing her powerful star-breaking seal with fury, the cultivator hits the enemy, sending him flying in an explosion of light. Furious seeing his henchman defeated, the Centipede King roars loudly and fires a massive blast of fire from his mouth. Engulfed by the destructive yellow flames covering the entire area, the girl lets out a scream of extreme pain as she is burned. Fallen on the ground without strength and breathing with great difficulty, the cultivator hears the enemy's mockery about human foolishness. Approaching the defenseless victim, the Centipede King warns he will send her to the next world once and for all. Mercilessly lifting the girl by the neck with extreme cruelty, the villain tells her not to believe in love in her next reincarnation. Even coughing heavily and on the brink of defeat, the young woman bites her lips and warns that this decision does not belong to the monster. Surprised at being stopped by a mysterious force holding his arm, the villain notices the arrival of a new pink-haired opponent. With an extremely powerful punch thrown by surprise, the newcomer violently sends the Centipede King flying far away. On her knees on the ground with her wounds hurting endlessly, Hongling cries in regret as she remembers her senior brother's sacrifice. With a shattered heart from the weight of the truth, the girl apologizes to our hero for never giving him the chance to explain himself in the past. Confused upon seeing the prisoner crying profusely, the monster servants wonder if she is crying over Fang Wuxi's demise. Focused while watching everything through the system's magic screen, our hero coldly asserts that the girl has absolutely no chance of making it out. Surprised to spot the silhouette of the fire phoenix flying high in the sky, the black-haired guy realizes that creature didn't exist in the past. Turning a deaf ear to the crying and suffering of the defenseless girl, the monster horde charges full force to finish her off. Agilely blocking the enemy's attack by surprise, the legendary red phoenix descends from the sky, generating a protective fire barrier. Relentlessly burning the enemies with its blast of sacred fire, the mystical bird pushes back the monsters who run desperately trying to dodge. Standing before Hongling with her beautiful red wings exposed, the pink-haired fairy says she wasn't going to interfere, but found her crying way too ugly. Furious at his ally's unexpected betrayal, the little dragon king accuses the fairy of betraying the very monster race. Upon spreading her fiery wings, the phoenix fairy warns that she will obliterate all enemies right then and there. Gently helping the young cultivator stand up with care, the fairy hands over one drop of her vital essence to keep her alive. Quickly swallowing the healing elixir in a rush, Hongling regains her strength and understands the immense sacrifice the senior brother made for her in the past. Desperate while trying to convince the fairy to hand over the human prisoner, the Dragon King warns that saving humanity's greatest prodigy will bring ruin to the beasts. Facing the gigantic golden fist of divine judgment that appears in the dark sky, the two allies prepare for their final escape. Curious looking at the injured girl by her side, the Phoenix Fairy asks if she is truly ready for the counterattack. Engulfed by an immense whirlwind of red flames and glowing wings, the two warriors ascend toward the skies. Swiftly crossing the storm of purple lightning with overwhelming force, the two take off together at high speed. With a colossal explosion of red and golden energy that clears the entire battlefield, the two escape, leaving the monsters behind.